Uh, there are a number of studies that have shown that between 50 and 85% of the growth in the gross domestic product over the last half century is attributable to advancements in science and engineering. Similarly, two-thirds of the growth or the increase in productivity has been attributed to advancements in science and engineering. This has not gone unnoticed by the leaders of other countries. For example, in China, 8 of their 9 top political leaders are, in fact, engineers. But I'd like to begin at the beginning in these remarks, turn the clock back. I'd like to turn the clock back a little over 200 million years, if I may. My geologist friends tell me that at that time there was a large supercontinent known as Gondwanaland that was made up by part of what today is known as Antarctica, Africa, South America, Australia, the Indian Peninsula, some of Arabia, and that at that time it began breaking apart. All those parts drifted away from each other to where they began to have relatively less and little effect upon one another. But then my economist friends tell me that in just the last couple of decades, all that's been reversed. That 200 million years, all these continents have come smashing back together to reform today what we have as Gondwanaland. This has been described by Tom Friedman in his terrific book, The World is Flat, in the words, globalization has accidentally made Beijing, Bangalore, and Bethesda next-door neighbors, which indeed it has. This trend has been known as the death of distance. It was named that by Francis Cairncross, writing in The Economist, and what he was referring to was the fact that distance is gone. Distance doesn't matter anymore. You can climb on an airplane and very cheaply fly at nearly the speed of sound to wherever you want to go on this planet. If you want to send information, knowledge, ideas, you can do that at the speed of light at almost no cost. And indeed, what this has produced is a planet on which we compete for jobs now, not just with our neighbors in our local community. We compete with jobs, for jobs, with people in Bangalore, Bethesda, Beijing, wherever. These jobs are now, candidates are a mouse click away. Author Clyde Prestowitz points out that there are now 3 billion new workers in the workforce that became available, would-be capitalists, he calls them, following the decline of traditional communism at about 1990. Furthermore, fewer jobs are, quote, safe, unquote, than many of us might have believed. Initially, the jobs that proved not to be safe were assembly work, work in factories, but then it spread to the back offices, to administrative work, financial work, writing software. Today, the jobs that are vulnerable to competition around the world include the professions, medicine, accounting, engineering, architecture, banking. But if history teaches us anything, it's that no nation has a right to greatness, that you have to re-earn greatness every day. Certainly true of our nation. Typifying the tendency, the unfortunate tendency of Americans to take for granted greatness, leadership, fine institutions, great educations, a strong economy. Typical of that assumption is a story I love to tell about Dan Golden. Dan was administrator of NASA at the time. He was appearing in a public forum, and he was being roundly criticized by an individual there for NASA's having spent so much money on Earth satellites. And this individual ended his argument by turning to Dan and saying, why do we need meteorological satellites? We have the Weather Channel. So given that framework, how are we going to compete in a world where there are a lot of people willing to work and work very hard for a fraction, maybe a factor of 10, less than we're accustomed to earning in this country? And the answer of the academies, along with many others, as I've said, is to be premier at the leading edge of creating new knowledge, and then to be among the very leaders in taking that new knowledge and converting it through world-class engineering into products and services, and then through world-class entrepreneurship taking those products and services and getting them first to the marketplace. That is innovation. The prime driver of this new economy then will be the education of the populace, and particularly the education of a smaller cadre of people who are highly qualified in science, engineering, and mathematics. To begin with, as Alan Greenspan said, and I quote, "If you don't solve the kindergarten through 12th grade education problem, nothing else is going to matter all that much." It's true that America has some outstanding K through 12 schools. We have some outstanding teachers, outstanding principals, but on average, by almost any test I've ever seen, on an international basis, we're failing, and we're failing badly. The most recent tests that came out, they were described in the Washington Post as saying that we had, in the last 12 years, had stagnated, but there was one bright spot. And the bright spot the Post cited was 4th grade arithmetic. Now, unfortunately, most industry doesn't hire 4th graders, or maybe fortunately, but they don't. But if you did a little more arithmetic of your own and got out the original data from these tests where it was the bright spot, it showed that at the rate we improved in the last 12 years in 4th grade math, that it will take us just 85 years to catch up with Hong Kong, assuming they don't get any better in the next 85 years. So when we talk about getting better, we have to address where are we getting better from. One of the reasons for this problem is that if you're a 5th through 8th grader in the United States, you're studying math, there's a 69% chance your teacher has neither a degree nor a certificate in math. That's good. If you're studying science, there's a 93% chance your teacher has neither a degree nor a certificate. At the University of North Carolina, Erskine Bowles, when he became president, in his inaugural address said, I quote, "Think about this. In the past 4 years, our 15 schools of education at the University of North Carolina turned out a grand total of 3 physics teachers, 3. And North Carolina is not alone, I might say. Fortunately, Britt has made this a major commitment of our institutions to see that Maryland does better and better and better and better in this regard. This meeting is evidence of that commitment.